آزادی بیان.
言论自由
Free speech.
I'm sure there'll be lots of questions on that. Let me just touch on a couple of other areas and then open it up. One is deletion. You delete a lot on Wikipedia.
Yes, we do. We delete lots and lots and lots.
Some people object to that. There was actually a movement of people trying to save articles from the memory hole.
Yes, yes. So the deletion debates in Wikipedia are sort of a place where there's ongoing, continuous discussion. It goes on and on and on and on. And some of it's fairly simple and not controversial. You know, if somebody creates an article that's a complete hoax and is actually completely false, and we discover that it's false, there's no real controversy about saying, well, we should delete this. It's completely misleading, and there's no reason to have it. Or if it's complete nonsense, which happens with some regularity as well. Those ones are easy. Other areas where we would delete entries would be entries that are about topics that we have no real ability to verify the information. So a typical example might be a rock and roll band in Manchester, let's say, and they've played you know, 2 gigs, one in mom's basement and one at the high school dance. There have been no press coverage. There's nothing, you know, there's no way we can confirm or deny the information in it. And we would say, look, that's just not notable is the term we would use. That we can't verify it. Other people can't check it. So that would be deleted. Beyond that, that's the bulk of what gets deleted. Things that are not verifiable. Other examples, you know, people love to come up with new concepts in political science that they just made up themselves, and new terminology, and they'll write a nice long essay about it, usually a slightly rambling long essay about it. And you know, often you'll see quite good-natured people who say, okay, right, I'm doing research, I'm trying to find more information about this concept, but I don't see it.
So who decides what is a bona fide concept in political science?
Well, so what happens is people, there's articles for deletion, so you can nominate something for deletion, and then there's a period of time when people can weigh in pro or con. What's interesting about this kind of a vote within Wikipedia is it's not really a vote. We used to call it votes for deletion, but people said it's not really a vote. It is a discussion and debate. And what happens at the end of that discussion and debate, an administrator goes through, and the administrators are elected from within the community, and they read the debate, and they make a decision based on that. And typically what they do is they count up the number of votes, because people will say either delete, keep, merge. There's different options. But they also consider the quality of the arguments and things like that. So typically if they see, you know, 80% votes to delete, even if they think it should be kept, they would be quite cautious about declaring that to be a keep, even if they think the arguments are better. But if it's you know, 50-50, and you know, let's say 8 people voted, 4 people point out that it's a complete hoax, and there's absolutely no evidence that it exists at all, and 4 people who, by the way, just signed up in the last day, all say, it's awesome, it's awesome, it's awesome, it's really awesome. They're not going to go, well, it's 50-50, I think we'll keep it. You know, they'll say, okay, well, nobody. The ones who voted to keep it didn't offer an argument whatsoever. There's some cogent arguments for deleting it, so we'd go ahead and delete it. And then if you don't like the deletion decision, because in Wikipedia there's always another thing to do, you can take it to deletion review. And it basically gets relisted. And you sort of ask people to say, hey, let's get some wider attention on this, and you know, re-examine. Was this closed correctly? Are there new arguments? Are there new things? And even as a part of the deletion process, people often, an article is posted for deletion, it'll get a few deletion votes, and then somebody will say, hey, wait, hold on, actually, I know a lot about this topic. I'm gonna, you know, if you could just hold on a day, tomorrow I'm going to write this huge thing, and you'll see there's loads of sources. It's actually perfectly valid. And then the administrators will read that and go, oh, okay, well, we'll just hold on and see what's happening. So I think it's a fairly reasonable process, and people get agitated about it at times. But actually, when you go through and if you take a look at the last 40 deletions at any time, I personally find even, sometimes I get annoyed because something got deleted. I'm like, oh, how could they delete that? And then I go, oh, well, actually, it's a pretty good argument for deletion. I think most people would say the decisions are fairly reasonable.
I'm going to park, but just mention a whole other area which links to deletion. A colleague of ours, Victor Meyer-Schoenberger, in this university, published a book called Delete, The Virtue of Forgetting in the Digital Age. And he argues, and indeed soon the EU may be arguing, that there is a right to forget, or right to be forgotten, that you shouldn't constantly for the rest of your life be reminded of what you did when you were 17.
I'll give a good example of that. So one of the areas where deletion debates are important, and in fact a lot of the really tough work in Wikipedia goes on around what we call a BLP. We have lots of jargon, unfortunately, within our community, but a biography of a living person. And one of our principles for biographies is BLP 1E. So it's another buzzword. A biography of a living person who's notable for only one event. There's different varieties of this, but what we're really looking for...
Can you give us an example?
An example, well, they usually get deleted, and then I usually forget who they are because they were only notable for one event. But the example, an innocent passerby who somehow got drawn into the news. And, this can happen. Here's a perfectly good example. The captain of this Italian boat.
Yeah, he's a BLP 1E. Right?
He's a BLP 1E, and in general...
And something else as well.
Yeah. In general, what we're going to say about a guy like this is cover the event, not the person. It's okay to mention his name in relation to the event, but we cannot write a biography of this man because we don't know enough about him. We're not likely to know enough about him, except he was a captain, and his boat sank, and ... we'll see what happens, was detained and may end up in jail over it. Unless, of course, he gets out of jail and sinks another boat, and then it starts to be BLP 2E. But in general, when we look at those kinds of things, we say, look, for many cases like this, eventually, whatever happens to him, he may be innocent, he may be guilty, but eventually he's really is going to prefer to fade into obscurity. I don't think he's going to be eager to be in Wikipedia and have a full biography, given that there's only one thing that anybody's ever going to know about him. And so I think what we will end up doing in this case, and I haven't actually looked to see if there's any discussion about this, is we're going to have a fabulous article in great detail about the event. His name will be there. It's part of history. But what we're not going to do is have an article about him, unless it turns out he's much more interesting than you would suppose.